How can a single word destroy an entire life? Not a scream, not a confession, not even a sentence. Just one word. Who? Imagine returning home after months, perhaps even years, away from the people you love. You've dreamed of this moment countless times. You imagine warm embraces, tears of joy, laughter filling the room. But instead, you stop. Your eyes fall upon something that shouldn't exist. A child, a cradle, or perhaps a face that tells a story no one is willing to explain. The room falls silent. No one speaks. Then, with a voice trembling between anger, heartbreak, and disbelief, only one question escapes your lips. Who? That single unanswered question became the inspiration for one of the most emotionally disturbing paintings of 19th century Russia. Painted by Russian realist Nikolay Kasatkin in 1897, this masterpiece doesn't show violence. It doesn't show blood. It doesn't even show the moment before or after the tragedy. Instead, it traps us inside the exact second when trust begins to collapse. At first glance, the painting seems almost ordinary. A modest home. Simple furniture. Nothing luxurious. Nothing dramatic. Yet the atmosphere feels unbearably heavy. Every object in the room seems frozen. Every face carries a weight that words can no longer express. Then your eyes move toward the people. A man stands motionless. His body is rigid. His face is pale, not with fear, but with shock. His expression isn't one of simple anger. It's something far more painful. Confusion. Disbelief. A desperate search for an explanation. He has just discovered something that has shattered everything he believed about his life. Across from him stands a young woman. She doesn't fight back. She doesn't argue. She doesn't even try to defend herself. Her head lowers ever so slightly. Her eyes avoid his. Whether she feels guilt, fear, or simply exhaustion. Repin? No, Kasatkin never tells us. And that silence becomes deafening. There is no hero. There is no villain. Only two human beings trapped in a moment that neither of them can escape. This is where Kasatkin reveals his genius. Most artists tell us exactly what is happening. Kasatkin refuses. He gives us only fragments. A room. A man. A woman. One terrible question. Everything else must be discovered by us. That is why viewers have argued about this painting for more than 100 years. Some believe the man has returned from military service after years away. Others think he has come back from prison or hard labor. Some believe he is looking at a child who cannot possibly be his. Others argue that the painting is not about betrayal at all. Perhaps the woman herself is a victim. Perhaps something happened while he was gone, something beyond her control. Perhaps the question, who, is not an accusation. Perhaps it is a desperate plea to know the identity of the person who destroyed their lives. And suddenly, the painting changes. The woman no longer appears guilty. She appears frightened, broken, powerless. With one new interpretation, every expression inside the painting takes on an entirely different meaning. That is the brilliance of Kasatkin. He doesn't paint answers. He paints uncertainty. The more you stare at the faces, the less certain you become. Was this a story of betrayal? A story of injustice? A tragedy caused by war? Or a heartbreaking misunderstanding? Every possibility feels believable. Every possibility hurts. But to truly understand why this painting continues to haunt people more than a century after it was created, we first need to understand the man who painted it. Who was Nikolay Kasatkin? Why did he choose to paint ordinary people instead of kings and generals? And what was happening in Russia that inspired artists to create works filled not with glory, but with suffering, silence, and impossible choices? The answers reveal that this painting is far more than a domestic argument. It is a mirror. reflecting the fears, hardships, and fragile human relationships of an entire generation. And by the end of this story, you may discover that the most painful question in the painting isn't who, it's whether the truth, whatever it may be, can ever heal a broken heart. To understand this painting, we must first understand the world in which it was created. Russia in the late 19th century was a nation caught between hope and hardship. Its cities were growing. Factories were rising. Railways stretched across the country. Yet for millions of ordinary people, life remained painfully difficult. Most families lived from one day's work to the next. Poverty was not an exception. It was a way of life. Men often spent months, or even years, away from home. Some were soldiers serving the empire. Others traveled long distances searching for work. Many returned home as strangers, not because they had forgotten their families, but because time changes people. Children grow. Parents grow old. Love is tested. And sometimes, life takes a direction no one could have imagined. It was this world that fascinated one of Russia's greatest realist painters, Nikolay Kasatkin. Unlike artists who filled their canvases with emperors, nobles, or glorious victories, Kasatkin looked somewhere else. He looked toward the forgotten. Coal miners, factory workers, poor families, women struggling to survive, children forced to grow up too quickly. He believed that the greatest stories were not found inside royal palaces, but inside ordinary homes. And perhaps no painting captures that belief better than who. Notice what Kasatkin chooses to paint. There are no expensive decorations, no luxurious clothing, no signs of wealth. The room is simple, almost painfully ordinary, because the tragedy unfolding before us could belong to anyone. This is not the story of one family. It is the story of thousands. Now look carefully at the man. His body tells us almost as much as his face. He stands frozen. His shoulders are tense. His arms seem uncertain. He is not charging forward in rage. He is not pointing a finger. He is simply trying to understand. That single pause is incredibly important, because anger often comes after certainty. But this man isn't certain of anything. His entire world has collapsed in a matter of seconds. His eyes seem to ask questions faster than his mind can answer them. How could this happen? What have I missed? Is everything I believed a lie? Now shift your attention to the woman. Perhaps she is his wife. Perhaps his fiancée. Kasatkin never tells us. And perhaps that was intentional. She does not shout. She does not run away. She does not even attempt to explain herself. Instead, she stands quietly beneath the unbearable weight of silence. Look closely at her posture. Her body appears closed. Her shoulders seem heavy. Her head is lowered. But what does that posture mean? Many viewers immediately assume guilt. Yet psychologists often point out that the very same body language can also express fear, shock, or trauma. Someone who has suffered something terrible may lower their eyes not because they are guilty, but because they no longer possess the strength to defend themselves. Suddenly, the painting transforms. If she is guilty, the scene becomes one of betrayal. If she is innocent, it becomes one of unimaginable tragedy. Kasatkin never tells us which interpretation is correct. Instead, he forces us to confront our own assumptions. How quickly do we judge someone? How easily do we decide who is innocent and who is guilty before hearing the whole story? That question remains just as relevant today as it was more than a century ago. One remarkable feature of the painting is what we don't see. There are no dramatic gestures, no broken furniture, no physical violence, no visible tears, only silence. And sometimes, silence is louder than any scream. The longer you study the painting, the more uncomfortable that silence becomes. You almost expect someone to speak, to explain, to end the uncertainty, but no one does. Instead, Kasatkin leaves the burden with us. Our imagination begins filling the empty spaces. What happened before this moment? What will happen after? Will forgiveness be possible? Or has this family already reached the point of no return? Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is the title itself. Who? Such a simple word. Yet it can carry countless meanings. Who is the child's father? Who caused this suffering? Who should be blamed? Who is telling the truth? Or perhaps, who have we become? That single word becomes more than a question inside the painting. It becomes a question directed at every viewer, not asking what happened, but asking how we choose to see it. And that is the quiet brilliance of Nikolay Kasatkin. He understood that the most unforgettable stories are not always those with clear endings. Sometimes, the stories that stay with us longest are the ones that leave us searching for answers long after we've walked away. There is something unusual about this painting. Most works of art reveal more the longer you study them. This one reveals less. At first, everything seems obvious. A man has returned home. A woman stands before him. Something terrible has happened. The question has been asked. Who? But then, doubt begins to creep in. Every expression starts to change. The man's face no longer looks purely angry. Instead, it seems wounded. A face searching desperately for the truth while secretly fearing what that truth might be. The woman's silence begins to feel different as well. Is she ashamed? Or is she simply too devastated to speak? Has she betrayed someone she loved? Or has life betrayed them both? The painting never tells us. And perhaps that was Kasatkin's greatest achievement. Because real life rarely offers perfect answers. Think about the most painful moments in your own life. How often did you immediately know the whole truth? Usually, you didn't. There were misunderstandings, half-truths, rumors, silence, and countless unanswered questions. Kasatkin understood something timeless. Human suffering often begins not with certainty, but with uncertainty. The unknown can hurt more than the truth itself. Psychologists sometimes describe a phenomenon known as the need for closure. Our minds dislike unfinished stories. When information is missing, the brain instinctively tries to complete it. It searches for patterns, builds explanations, creates endings. That is exactly what happens when we stand before this painting. Some viewers immediately decide the woman is guilty. Others believe she is innocent. Some feel sympathy for the man. Others feel sympathy for them both. And every interpretation says as much about the viewer as it does about the painting. That is the remarkable power of ambiguity. Kasatkin doesn't simply paint two people. He paints a mirror. Every person who looks at it brings their own beliefs, their own experiences, their own fears. The painting quietly asks us, when evidence is incomplete, how quickly do you judge? This question remains just as important today. In a world of headlines, short videos, and social media, people often reach conclusions within seconds. A photograph, a rumor, a single sentence, and suddenly, someone is declared guilty or innocent before the full story is even known. More than a century ago, Kasatkin captured that same human instinct on a single canvas. The technology has changed. Human nature has not. There is another reason this painting continues to resonate. It speaks about trust. Trust is one of the strongest foundations of any relationship. Yet it is also one of the most fragile. It takes years to build, sometimes only one moment to break. Whether the tragedy in this room was caused by betrayal, violence, war, or simple misunderstanding, the result is the same. Two lives have changed forever, and neither of them can return to the people they were just moments before. That is why Kasatkin chose not to paint the ending, because the ending belongs to us. Some viewers imagine forgiveness. Others imagine separation. Some believe the truth eventually heals the family. Others believe the damage can never be repaired. Every ending exists inside the imagination of the person standing before the painting. And perhaps that is why this masterpiece refuses to grow old. It doesn't belong only to 19th century Russia. It belongs to every generation that has struggled with doubt, love, loss, and the painful search for truth. Great paintings do more than decorate museum walls. They preserve human emotions. Long after the people themselves are gone, long after the houses have disappeared, long after history has moved on, the emotions remain. Fear remains. Hope remains. Love remains. So does uncertainty. As we prepare to leave this quiet room, one final question remains. Imagine you were standing where the man stands. You return home after years away. One glance changes everything. Would you ask the same question? Would you demand an answer? Or would you first ask whether what you are seeing is the whole truth? Perhaps that is the true meaning of Kasatkin's masterpiece. The question who is not only directed at the woman. It is directed at every one of us. Who are we when trust is broken? Who are we when the truth is hidden? Who are we when emotion speaks louder than evidence? And perhaps the most important question of all, who do we become after that single moment changes our lives forever? More than 100 years have passed since Nikolay Kasatkin painted this unforgettable scene. Yet the room remains silent. The man still waits. The woman still cannot answer. And that single word, who, continues to echo through history, inviting every new viewer to search for an answer that the painting itself never gives. Because some mysteries are solved, but the greatest ones continue living inside the human heart.